We have a lot of questions this time. It's kind of cool. First things first, do you all get the small college university blurb in your email? So every night, I don't know if it's just me, every night I get a KUI College and University Network Digest. And sometimes the small college one comes through and sometimes it doesn't. But last night the small college went through. I can make sure you're all on it so you can get it. Other directions, Meredith, I'll figure that out and send it out to everybody.
Do you mean, Beth, do you mean for this meeting, or do you mean like when people post questions? Like there was one about a student for looking for a summer internship?
Yes, those ones. So like the ones where people post questions, you get those?
Yeah, I get those, but I don't get anything about the questions for today, like wherever that prompt was to suggest.
No, you don't get the questions for today. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So Jane, did everybody get this email, the message last night, Small College University Network, from James asking about the talking stick? Okay. Jack, right? I'll send it to you. So James put out that there are some volunteers working on a talking stick and staff office configurations. How do you handle working remotely after staff group together or scattered across campus? And he's just asking for someone from a small college university to chime in. I thought I could let someone else chime in instead of being in another article. So it's out there if anybody wants to help with James with that. Okay. Luis put a question in the chat. We can start with that.
Those were the questions that were sent to us.
Okay. Those aren't the ones I have for today though. We got new ones. We got those ones and then we got 3 more this morning, right? Yeah. Okay.
So
yeah, so the ones that Louis shared, and then I did share a few extra with you, Beth, this morning.
Okay, I'll put those in the chat. Thank you, Luis. Okay. Connected to Luis' comment question I wanted to ask. Okay, perfect. So why don't we just start at the top? So these are the questions that are sent to us from staff members or from people that can attend and can't attend, that whole thing. ADA accommodations. Talk through some of what folks do and do not do. Does anybody want to take that lead, or is there questions around that one more?
I can cover what how we're changing ours now. Currently at center, we don't have one person who's solely responsible for accommodations. So we have someone who does classroom accommodations. We have someone who does employee accommodations. We have someone, well, no one really does that. That's a different problem. And we in housing and residence life do housing accommodations, but we are now coming together as almost like a committee. And we're gonna look at things together and have our compliance officer also be there so that they can make sure that we're not going like way out there, or that we're not denying rights that we should be granting. And so that's what we're doing now. We're moving towards that, and we're going to have it presented not as an office, but more. We're struggling with what we're going to call it, but right now I'm temporarily calling it a committee.
For us, everything goes through our accommodation, like our accessibility office. So we have a testing center where students can go to do like quiet or untimed tests. And one of our people in that also do the accommodations. So they do it for classroom, and for us, our accommodations are mostly ESAs.
Ours is very much like Debbie's. I don't know. I see Jess moving around. That's why. Ours is very much like Debbie's. We have accessibility services. They actually have forms that the student has to sign if residence life is to be known or made aware of anything. ESA it's a committee that meets every 3 weeks. So the accessibilities director runs the meeting, and then myself and the director of Commons, which is our apartment style. It's also owned by our auxiliary. We have 2 housing that's owned by the auxiliary. And then also our university police officer who has a canine is part of it. And we talk about ESAs. So the ESAs is the director of accessibility services brings the whole packet completed. We only look at ESAs that are completed through their paperwork. And then we talk about like specifically with the apartments, is there already someone in the apartment with an ESA? How will ESAs get along? And the reason why the canine unit is with us is because we have to let them know where animals are in case our canine shows up to a room. So we don't have to worry about anything because we also have to worry about the safety of our canine. But we have definitely moved it to accessibility, so it's not liable.
When we first started getting ESAs, maybe like 6 or 7 years ago, we did it through our office for the first year. And then we're like, we don't want all this medical documentation. We don't have a way to keep it. We don't, you know what I mean? So we created the process to go through our accessibility services office. And then it kind of keeps residents' life out of it too. I think it's a more fair process. And it's, you know, what the students see as a more fair process too. And then we don't have to keep any of the HIPAA information here.
Any other questions with ADA?
Yeah, I think the only thing I add to that in terms of like where we have the one kind of lone exception for animals. I should say VASA has a very liberal pet policy. You know, outside of horses and chickens and things like that, students can, for the most part, we have students with rats as pets. You know, so a variety of kind of animals that students could bring for support, rabbits, so on and so forth. We don't, you know, we just need to know that they exist. The only exception outside of ESAs and support animals are the one thing that we've created recently are students who are training animals for support. We've started to allow that this year, as long as they're working with a reputable organization. We've allowed for the training to start to happen here on campus, and that's been a little bit of a change for us.
Then we have the chickens and the cows and the horses, but they're not ESAs, they're just in the barns on campus. I do want a chicken though so bad, or a baby goat in my office. Sorry, moving on. It won't get approved. The next question is we are looking to explore how students prefer to use lounges, lobby, common spaces, and our residence halls. Please somebody tell me what theirs do, because I will tell you what mine do, and it's not anything that I did when I was in college.
Can you repeat the question again one more time? I'm sorry. It was about lounges and what's happening in them?
Like, we're looking to explore how students prefer to use lounges, lobbies, and common area spaces in your residence halls.
For us, I mean, it depends on the building, but one of our main upperclassmen building, the lounge is primarily used by students for studying during the day and in the evening. There are groups, more so the athletic teams will come in and watch like football games and kind of, you know, hang out there. We have like a very big screen TV there that they can connect to their laptops or connect to other devices. And they'll have like little, you know, unsponsored, their own kind of hangouts where they'll watch games and whatnot. There are students who will bring down their like Xbox or other or Switch or other gaming devices and hook it up and play there as well too. And then of course our arrays use that space as the programming area. And that's in maybe 2 of our halls. One of our halls doesn't really have like a lounge like that. So it, you know, really there's not, a lot of those students that live in that building will kind of tag on to some of the other lounges and visit their friends in the other lounges if they want to do any of those things I just mentioned. But yeah, they're mainly used for studying, programming, and kind of, you know, recreational video gaming and, you know, sports watching and movie watching. Is somebody else doing something completely different besides that? I feel like that's the general norm. There's not usually, I haven't heard of anybody doing like, you know, we're having carnival circuses or whatever in our lounges or something, or having, swim meets in our lounge. I don't know. There's a pool in our lounge, a jacuzzi. So I'm curious if that is a good question, if there's anybody doing anything completely different than what we all do.
Yeah, since you just mentioned it, we do have a circus group on campus called Barefoot Fireflies, and they practice in our common spaces, particularly when the weather is not when the weather's not nice. Our organizations, a number of organizations, will utilize our common area spaces in the residential houses for a variety of things, org practice, dance practice. A couple of weeks ago, a student did a theater production inside one of them, a whole dramatic play, I think called Three Sisters or something like that. It might have been a Chekhov play. Anyway, so yeah, there's some creative uses there from our students. We don't typically, if they ask, we don't typically say no. I don't know if some houses still have like major like dance parties in them, as you would at maybe like one of your college centers. So that they're smaller kind of gatherings, but still unique in that way. Yeah.
We've had to start locking ours at night, like especially Friday nights and Saturday nights from 3 a.m. until 11. Because if we leave them open, they become an area for people to congregate and not always be doing. The best thing, we also added our like little kitchenettes in most of ours. A lot of our students like to cook. So all it is it's not, doesn't have a refrigerator. It just has a sink and it has a stove. And the students have actually told us recently they don't want the oven part of the stove. They just want burners. And I'm like, what? And because we're looking to redo another one soon, they're like, if you could just get us like burners. We don't really need an oven. We just want to be able to cook like spaghetti, mac and cheese, stuff like that. We don't need an oven. I'm like, okay. You guys don't want to make like cookies, cake? They're like, you can do that in the microwave. I'm like, okay. So it literally has a refrigerator, a sink, and our new one is just going to have a stovetop. And the students like that because then we have the big TVs and they can like make food. We use Swank. I don't know if any of you guys use Swank for movies. They will have a movie playing and they'll be making food and having a good time. But we have had to start locking it at night, just on the weekends. Okay. How do you help share your work efforts to the rest of the university?
One thing we're doing on our campus, and they did this before I got here, but I'm continuing, is they actually do a once a month department newsletter that they share with faculty and staff. Created it for students, but we realized sharing it with faculty and staff allow them to know what we're doing, what our role is, and it's helped people understand what we do. And then I am really intentional about what I share in our Board of Trustees report each quarter, and then what I share with my vice president and my dean of students. And I intentionally ask them to share things at the cabinet in the hopes, with the goal, doesn't always work, that it gets shared with other areas.
Not really an answer from us, but I know it's one of the kind of next deliverables of the future of the profession. There's a couple of groups working kind of on the elevator pitch about the merit and what residence life and housing brings to the rest of the institution. So that might be a space to look out for updated info.
One thing I would add to this is, for those going, all right, who's this Todd Duncan dude? I just retired after 30 plus years, 5 schools to include small schools. And yes, I work for Blockhouse Furniture, but I'm not going to sell anybody furniture. Okay. But one of the key things is knowing the impact of your housing program and that residential experience on retention. If you are a young CHO, you should know what is the retention rate of residential students versus non-residential students at your school. That's your strongest argument for funding and the value you bring to the institution and its revenue generation.
Our president's office now does a thing that every month before the campus-wide meeting, you can submit kudos. So I've been making sure to submit kudos to like my judicial board, to my staff, to university police. I gave kudos to admissions at opening, but I've been making sure to do that because then it goes on a live screen in front of everybody and is like, so I don't always know if we're the best at tooting our own horns, but sometimes it's nice to just get kudos. And the very first time they did it, only 2 people got kudos, admissions and the secretary to the president. And everybody was like shocked that they didn't get kudos. And the director of admission goes, "You gave us kudos." I was like, "Because you opened and we had a big class and you need to be acknowledged." So sometimes those little things you don't realize how big they are. So like the first meeting, we only had 2. The next meeting, we had 6 for the campus. Now it's like slide after slide after slide of kudos. I don't know if it's now going to get to the point that like everybody's like whatever, but it was kind of cool at the beginning. Okay. How do you deal with conduct issues? And then it's added, I wanted to ask about the terminology or objective parameters you put in place for no contact orders at small colleges, universities.
I could tackle a little bit of the second part of that and talk a little bit about our community expectation system here at Vassar, because we try to move the language away from, the kind of legal system. And I know that's easier said than done at a private institution than it might be at a public. But we have two distinct things. One's called a no contact expectation, which is really just like, don't talk to each other and don't have third party folks talk, communicate with, for you. And then we have what we call a no contact order. And that one is only in place when there's a Title IX investigation and or as a result of a Title IX investigation where someone's found responsible. And the distinction between the two is that the NCO has a proximity requirement per New York State law. In New York State, if a student has filed a report, it then becomes the obligation of the respondent to vacate the area that the reporting student is in. And so if they enter an more intimate environment, that student will need to move. That doesn't count for classes. Those things, there's a structure in place for making sure that the reporting student can be maybe placed in another section. Same thing with housing. We wouldn't move students unless there was a request to move by either party that we can accommodate. But we distinguish the NCE, which is again really around communication in any format, digital, social media, in person, and the NCO, which is really about, it signals that student there's an investigation that's taken place and there's a particular proximity requirement. I can say more about the community expectation stuff that falls outside of that, but hopefully that helps a little bit.
They are very similar, to be honest, and I'm at a state school, but I'm also in New York. So we have a do not contact, which is on campus, which is environmental. And then we have a no contact, which actually normally exactly what Louise says. Title IX, also probably legal ramifications in there, all that kind of stuff. The do not contact are only on campus. They don't go past campus. We have to explain that to students all the time. They can still be in the same class with someone. Most of the time, those are behavioral, like they can't stop fighting to the point that like they're both just stop talking to each other, stop having other people talk to you, just knock it off. They can still be in the same class, they can still be whatever near each other, but they can't, it's behavioral, they can't talk, and they do not have to talk, someone talk on their behalf. All the other ones are legal related or Title IX related. So if you are a state college, see what your legal system recommends. Like we have SUNY legal that we talk to. If you're a private college, maybe that's a question for your VP or your dean of like what the breakdown should be, because you want to make sure whatever your decision is and whatever your wording is supported by the legal aspect or your conduct or anything like that. That's just my cup of tea. That's all I would say about that, like, because I just wouldn't want someone to have something that isn't supported if they put it in place. I don't know what the whole question was about how do you deal with conduct issues? Because that's where it kind of started. I'm not sure if anybody in this group put this question in. So conduct is its own office on our campus. It's the Office of Student Rights and Responsibilities. Residence Life works very closely with the director. I mean, she's literally 2 doors down from me. With us, we handle residential conduct, but that's after it's been like assigned to us. So we do all the way up to like a level 2-ish. So like contact, roommate conflicts, noise violations, smoking in the room, like those things. Then there's a thing called J-Board that our Office of Student Rights and Responsibilities oversees. And a lot of my staff participates on the J-Boards, but there is a break between us. And if we are doing anything that we're concerned about conduct-wise, we always run it by our Office of Student Rights and Responsibilities. Residential life can only ask someone to not live in the halls. We cannot take someone out of the college. Like our conduct doesn't go that far. And that's where you have to go to the Office of Student Rights and Responsibilities. So I don't know what that question was, but I was just explaining like that's our breakdown.
I'll add a couple of unique things that we do here at Vassar, and we've checked in with our legal counsel and been able to do this, is at the end of every year, anything that's here we use warning levels, warning 1 and warning 2, warning 3. It's not like a strike system. Certain conduct can get you up to warning 3 or beyond that. But anything that's a warning 1 gets expunged at the end of the academic year. Anything that is a warning 2 or warning 3 is actually expunged at the point of graduation. So we don't do the whole, we're going to keep your files for 7 years thing. And so when we get those questions from institutions, graduate schools or jobs that say, do you have, is there a history of conduct? The answer for our students, unless they've been suspended or expelled, would be no, they don't. We think of those as educational interventions and not necessarily as like, criminal records that need to be kept beyond their time here. So that is, we recognize that as a very distinct kind of process, but I certainly put that out there as like, folks should consider it. I mean, I do think of student conduct work. That office reports to me, and it is tied to residential life. And so members of the house teams and house advisors do hear cases. But the approach of, around either restorative practices and the approach around addressing harm is kind of a tenet. And the language that we use around sanctions is different. We talk about outcomes and we specifically talk about logical consequences to certain behaviors. They still feel punitive. I mean, there's no kind of getting around that whenever you hold a student accountable. But we're trying. I think we're trying to approach the community expectations work a little bit different, and we're seeing some success with it.
We have our Office of Student Rights and Responsibilities also has a restorative justice circle. So the student can decide if it goes J-Board or restorative justice, and they get it explained. There are a few of us that are trained on that. It's actually really interesting because the student gets to really learn how they affected the community with their decision. Because we just had one 2 weeks ago, I think. I don't know, right after Thanksgiving. And we had our restorative justice circle, and like 2 of the cleaners were present to share how the students' effect was done on the environment. And that was very eye-opening to the student, and I really appreciated them taking the time to be there. So, because they did some damage in the hall. And so it was interesting. Like I've done many of these, and I've never seen where we've done a student's pick to go restorative justice over damage in the hall, and it was really interesting having different perspectives. So if you don't have that, it might be something to look into. It's kind of cool. Just another way to do conduct. Okay. I did not see everybody's lovely notes in here. So some of this stuff, like look in the notes, because when we were talking earlier, people were putting amazing things in here. So please check out the notes. Sorry, again, sound like a smoker. I apologize. Now we're on to What creative methods is your school using to recruit staff? Okay, this is scary, y'all.
I don't feel like it's much, it's very creative, but I've been using LinkedIn a lot to try to share there. And then our position is master's preferred, but there was a period of time I failed the search twice. So there was a period of time that I was very willing, and at some point I was like, you just need to have a bachelor's degree and be willing to be educational and care about people. That's all I need. And so I started emailing just about every one I could think of, asking if they had any recent grads looking to go into the field that were currently still searching from their RA program. So ultimately, our successful candidate is the person who found us. They had a bad situation that they were trying to remove themselves from and found us at the right time that we were trying to fill a spot. So it worked out really well for all of us, but I did feel desperate after a while.
I don't know that it's the spirit of the original question, but I'm kind of curious other people's take on that, the leaving a bad situation. I found so many more candidates applying after a semester's worth of working full-time someplace. I mean, it's just like through the roof now, whereas it used to be pretty rare. And we try to have like upfront conversations to the degree that they are, you know, wanting to share, willing to share. But it doesn't seem to be the norm that candidates present with that information. You know, there's nothing in the cover letter of like, you know, my partner got a new job, or my parents are ill and I need to move back home, or it just doesn't, I'm just curious what other people are seeing and kind of what the culture is changing around this job hopping.
One candidate told me straight up it was the money. I was like, oh, okay. They're like, I make more money here. My benefits are better here. I'm like, okay. Well, thanks for being honest. I didn't know what else to do because I was like, why did you just start at this school? Now you're coming here. They're like, I'm doing the same job and I make $3,000 more a year. My benefits are better. Okay. Thanks for being honest. We actually got, it was so cool. We posted on higher ed. We haven't posted on higher ed in 3 years because HR kept telling us we shouldn't post on higher ed. And we posted on higher ed and it worked. And we got a whole bunch of candidates this time. And I'm so excited because I had 2 openings in January and I need to get these people filled. So the other thing I've done is I've looked at like some of the schools have done really well with marketing, have those cute little pretty pictures that look like can have a live-in spouse, can have a pet, can have blah blah. And it's like what they're using to advertise. So I redid one of those. So it was much easier. So like no one wants to read through the job position. They just want to know what they're able to have on campus. If they're coming into Res Life, they kind of already know what the heck the job is. So it's like, what do I get coming to your college versus applying to another college? So here's your job description. You can click on it to find it if you want it, but this is the benefits. This is the pay. This is when it's needed. If you're interested, please click on this link and apply for the job. We normally have been getting only 3 or 5 candidates per search. We're already over 10 and it got posted last Thursday. So those 2 things helped us a lot. And I did share it on LinkedIn, which was also something I've never done before. So I don't know if all those helped, but that was me just praying that we could get somebody because I'm sick of running halls. So we'll just leave it at that. I do think like little stuff. That sounds crazy. So, okay.
I also have a comment. The candidate we hired, I have a Greek life background I am a member of a Greek organization, and we found the candidate we thought we wanted, and I did almost like the employment equivalent of a dirty rush. Like I was as very open and transparent with the candidate as I could be without offering them a job before we were able to offer a job. And I let them know that they were the candidate that I was hoping to find. And that if they had a successful interview, successful background check and whatnot, that I hope to be able to work with them. And so I'll be honest, but I'd also failed the search twice. So, and had some really great candidates accept other positions before we were able to offer. So that was what got me there.
Yeah, if I may, I had a response to the original question of creative ways I've seen colleges and universities try to attract and recruit new talent, as well as a response to Catherine's additional segment to it. A creative way I've seen is offering a lot of live-on, live-in positions, or that like taxable benefit of housing for people outside of residence life as well. The relocation costs, the benefit of having housing and that kind of adding to the compensation without necessarily giving higher salary has been a creative way I've seen. And it's one that I've seen well received amongst a lot of the staff. To Catherine's earlier point, I supervise a lot of the area coordinators, and I've noticed that younger professionals as well have a more, I don't know what the proper terminology is other than a new social contract when it comes to professionalism, work relationships. I always believe that, it's new thinking, not necessarily negative or positive, but they value a lot of themselves more, and there's less focus on, working for that company. It is very much a social contract of, you're going to pay me for the work that you want, and I will do, the work that is required of me. They're valuing a lot more of the positivity and the workplace culture than they are, a lot of other things now. There's a lot less, loyalty to the company as much as there is that mutually beneficial relationship that they value a lot. So when they see other colleges, other universities, other opportunities present themselves and say, hey, we're willing to pay you more, we value your work, equal to the compensation package. They're just not afraid to say, all right, well, a better opportunity is there. A better way to advance me personally is there. I've heard and I've read some articles that a lot of it comes from mass layoffs during COVID when they say, all right, so this is a sudden realization that when things do get hard, I'm by myself, right? So where can I go that will benefit me as much as, possible?
That makes a ton of sense. And I definitely get it. I think maybe the corollary to it that I haven't seen quite as much is the understanding that sometimes your experience and your skill level increases the longer you stay someplace. So like, and I know some of this, you're selling yourself in your cover letter or whatever, but like, I have all this experience, I've done all these things. Like, well, you've done them for 4 months. So I'm not sure we would say that you have a, really high competency at this yet. I think that's the piece that is, I'm not sure where the thought process is there, but.
I think one of the challenges that we're having right now as it relates to hiring and whatnot, our professional staff includes 3 graduate students, and we're not getting graduate students in our area. We have a partnership with Indiana University of Pennsylvania Student Affairs Program, which is undergoing huge changes right now because it shrunk so much. I mean, they're getting maybe 10 students a year in their cohort. We've tried to reach with our parent institution. I'm at a branch campus of the University of Pittsburgh. So we've only got 625 beds on our campus, but we're a half hour away from our, the mothership, as I like to call it. And so we're not, for the past 2 years, we've had graduate resident director positions vacant. And so the people at the top of our department are doing double duty. So like, I'm overseeing areas in the resident director capacity while also being the assistant director of the department. So, so it's not even just hiring those full-time professionals, but, we are really struggling to fill the graduate assistantship positions for here too.
So we don't have graduate assistants because of where we're located, but we have 2 HRAs. So they're RAs that have to apply for the role, and they get to stay in like our smaller buildings with our smaller apartments. So they get the apartment, and they're like little 1-bedroom apartments. And then they get like the commons meal plan, which is our lowest meal plan, because they get to cook and stuff. That has helped us with staffing. So our pro staff will have a pro staff over them, but they will be in that building.
Yeah, that's what we've done. Kind of. We have some we have lead CAs is what we have, and they're very helpful, at least on the programming side of things. But we don't like to put our undergrad students in supervision positions. You know, we're very cautious because, you know, many years ago we actually did that, and putting undergrad students in a supervisory relationship to other undergrad students didn't go so well. So, but we
Ours
haven't
don't.
done that.
Ours don't supervise, so they still have, that building still has their one-on-ones with their area coordinator.
Mhm.
What the HRA does is they are in the office during the day, for that building, because the area coordinator cannot be, but they're only in the office 10 hours during a week instead of what a pro staff is. They help with keeping like administrative stuff done. So they help with making sure that like the key audit is done properly, and they do the walk for the building, and they do stuff like that. They don't have one-on-ones with those RAs, and they don't oversee those RAs. They're just there as another support. Their supervisor is still the area coordinator that's over the HRA. The HRA is there more to help with the administrative side and to be like visible in the building when the area coordinator cannot be. So that's what, because we didn't want them to supervise other RAs, because you're supervising your peers, and that can get gray matter. Brian, you put something like our professional staff live in apartments have caused us to lose good candidates. What's going on there?
Yeah, for our full-time positions, you know, I just, you know, the last time we had to hire for a full-time position, I think we failed it 2 or 3 times. And we're pretty convinced because, you know, the apartment they were going to be getting is in one of our old brick style buildings. You know, once upon a time it was a really nice RD apartment, but now, I mean, you know, that building is a cinder block building, and so it's really hard to kind of do upgrades to that apartment. You know, we've since over the summer we got some capital money to upgrade one of our professional staff apartments. So we're making baby steps, you know, one apartment at a time. We've gotten some approval with the long-term plan of trying to use that as a recruitment tool, because I think we've all seen, you know, when there are professional live-in staff positions open, the places that have really nice apartments use those in their advertisements, right? Because we all know like that's a huge factor. You know, do you have a washing drying unit in your apartment? Do you have wood floors? Do you have cinder block walls? All those things are huge, and our institution also doesn't pay a whole lot, so that doesn't help. But I think for us, it was really the living space, because it was a 1-bedroom, basically an efficiency apartment that a full-time professional was going to live in. And we see so many people coming with pets and partners now, and there's no way that a pet and partner could live in some of our apartments.
We were having issue with an old cinder block building, apartment, and it's still like the most awkward apartment ever, but because like the refrigerator is out in the hallway in the same room as the washer and dryer, but we were able to fix the aesthetics, I guess. So physical plant was working on a big project. They had a whole bunch of leftover flooring, so we nicely pieced mapped the floor together. So like the bedrooms both have new rug squares in them, and then the rest of it we were able to do like a fake wood. And it's because we didn't have enough to do fake wood through the whole apartment. So then it was like, well, what are we gonna do? I was like, do you have carpet squares? They're like, yeah. I'm like, do carpet squares in the bedrooms, do fake wood through the rest of the apartment, leave the bathrooms alone, the tile's fine. And then we just painted it, like just refreshed it. and we put an accent wall in both bedrooms. And we made the bathrooms a different color than the kitchen. The living room and the kitchen are like a white. So we kind of just worked with the physical plant because they had the paint, they had the leftover scraps, and we didn't have to put in for a huge thing. And honestly, now, because it has a washer dryer, I only have one apartment now that doesn't have a washer dryer. We don't know how we're gonna get one in there, we're trying. But all of our apartments have washer dryers because we were able to get a washer dryer in that one, and we fixed the aesthetics. My staff is like, Beth, I would rather have the refrigerator where it is. It's not in the kitchen, it's not in the way. I'm like, okay. And they're like, that apartment's actually awesome. It's got like a huge window. I'm like, okay. They're like, the paint really helped. The other thing we did is we got them mattresses through a company that we use to buy our regular mattresses for our students. And we just got them queen size. So that way they can buy the pillow top or whatever, but they still have a queen size bed that they have when they move in. And we made sure that there was real furniture in the apartment and not Residence Hall furniture. So stuff like that. It did not cost us as much as other things. Any sense of where standards for providing furniture or giving budget for it? Oh, I don't give them a budget. I provide them with, this is what we have for you. If you want something else or you want anything removed, like one of my area coordinators moved in with a whole apartment and we just took everything out. We don't give them a budget to buy furniture. We buy furniture and provide it. And then when they move out, it's sterilized and cleaned. We have a company come in and do all of that. But we bought like grays and blues, so that way it's like more of a neutral. Every apartment has a couch and a oversized chair or a love seat and an oversized chair, whatever fits in that dynamic. And then they have some kind of kitchen table, either a small one or a bigger one by your apartment. And then they all have a bedroom set, so they have a dresser and a wardrobe and a closet. If they don't have a closet, they have a wardrobe, and they have a queen size bed. So I tell them that's what we provide. They are more than welcome to put any of it into storage that they want. They're more than welcome to go buy furniture while they're here, but we don't actually give them finances to purchase stuff. That was the only way I could get I could get it approved a couple years ago to get the furniture, is if we just provided the same for everybody. Advancement team, yeah. They a lot of times have stuff. But see what resources are out there, because I was shocked when I walked down to the physical plant and they had all this fake wood. I was like, what are you doing with that? They're like, we don't have a project for it. I'm like, I do. I got an RD apartment that needs to get flipped right now. And they're like, are you kidding me? I'm like, nope. How much square footage you got? I'll go find out what square footage I need. Like, it was wonderful. But they do look at what they're living in.
I have become the student whisperer for our facilities team. And I've learned that that comes with certain rewards when we ask for certain projects. They're like, yes, because you're so helpful in these areas, we will help you in that area. So become the student whisperer.
Well, my physical plant does not like a building without an RD in it. So if it means fix the apartment so an RD will move in, the director's like, what do we got to do? Why do we got to make this pretty? I'm like, make it pretty. And he always laughs at me. He's like, he goes, Beth, I can't make an apartment pretty for a guy. I'm like, you can still make it pretty for a guy. It means real paint, not like yellow. Like, I don't know what is up with two of my physical plant guys, but they like that like yellow that looks like a smoker's house yellow. Do you know what I'm talking about? And I'm like, that is not something I want to come home to. Like, give me some like eggshell gray or something. Like, come on. So it's very entertaining.
You'll appreciate this then. Our CFO has decided recently that all campus houses should be painted, their front door should be painted like it's on our brand, but we'll just call it Steelers Gold.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay.
Every front door.
Anything else with recruiting? Okay, last question, and we've got 12 minutes. Sorry. Any tips or techniques they use to reduce the RA workload, since things can stack up and having a smaller staff? When people come to me with more stuff for the RAs, I say, what am I taking away? It's honestly the question I ask. I go, I think that's great for the RAs to be part of, but what am I taking away from them? So now people know to come with an answer before they just come with, the RAs are going to do this. But it's just changing the conversation.
Yeah, it has to start at the top when people, because people always come to ask if the RAs or CAs can do X, Y, and Z. And my supervisor and I, we say no, they can't. You know, I mean, unless it's really instrumental to their role in their community, we say no, you know, in obviously a respectful way, but it's real easy for people to dump on CAs, RAs, and even us as residence life staff. So we defend them, and that's the biggest thing we do is we say no.
I think folks who've been here for a while will know what I'm about to share again. Vassar has a unique model. Up until maybe 2000 and I don't want to say 17, our student fellow, which is as close as we come to having our RA here, was compensated $250 a semester. So I just kind of want to put that it was a near volunteer position for the longest of time. Today they are paid the minimum wage for up to 8 hours a week. That is their compensation. And the reality is, though, is that that student fellow is responsible for 8 to 10, typically 8 to 10 first-year students on their floor in proximity to them. And their responsibility is more so as a peer mentor. They'll put on some activities, but they are not the programming body for that house. That is the house events officer that is also compensated about $3,000 a semester. Student fellows report to house student advisors, who are typically juniors, and those students are also paid about $3,000 a semester, no room and board. And then this year we introduced community fellows, which are responsible for floors. Those students are also compensated $3,000, do light programming, they have very specific roles. No one's on duty. No one does rounds. Very specific to community building and support. And that is it. And we haven't had a push to do anything more than what we're doing right now in terms of compensation, because I think students understand that if we were to compensate them more significantly, the expectations would grow, and that the scope of their roles would also need to expand. And that's not something that's within the kind of ethos of the institution in terms of what kinds of responsibilities we think our students should be responsible for. So anything, again, there's programming that happens, and there's a hell of a lot of like one-to-one support that they offer our students, but that is the crux of their work. I know that maybe doesn't work for anybody else but Vassar, but that's just where we are. Maybe just to say this, I think we have students who are happy to be in service in that way, and we don't get reports of being burnt out. So just want to put that. And we do have a significant turnover from one year to the next. Very few students return back to house team, so it's typically students who do it for about a year, at max 2.
Brian, we have it's called a scholarship through financial aid. So they get their room at a single room rate, scholarship to cover that. And then per semester. So that means their room is free, is what they say. And then we have a $200 stipend towards their meal plan per semester. If that, I can send you that stuff if you would like.
Yeah, I guess I was curious just because I know right now we cover all room and meal plan expenses. So which I feel like is a relatively typical compensation model for RAs. But I feel like, we've had lots of conversations in our department about students are very different, and they never see any dollars, so they don't feel like they're getting paid. And so we have this burning kind of question of, should we be giving them more? Should we actually be giving them a stipend? Because I don't think that, 20 years ago when I was an RA, I felt like I was getting ample compensation. My room and board was paid for and it was great. But now our students, they want to see some physical dollars. And so we're
So
struggling with that question kind of internally.
we had that question come up last year, and we met with all the RAs and we met with RA candidates. And we could turn the $200 meal stipend to physical cash to them. Like we could turn it to campus cash and put it on their card. But they said they didn't want that. The other thing is I took how much they get for a scholarship each semester. I broke it up, like divided by how many hours a week that they even said to us that they work on average. And then I put the hourly rate for New York State, and they were making more than the hourly rate. So as soon as they saw that, they stopped asking questions. They're like, okay, so on average, we're making more than hourly rate. I don't have to pay back my housing. I don't have to figure out how to pay for my housing. And they all chose to keep the stipend going on their meal plan instead of getting it as campus cash. Like it was 93% of them wanted it on their bill and not as campus cash. We were floored. We thought they were going to flip it on us, which would have been fine, but we really thought they were going to flip it on us. So we just met with them and talked to them. But we did great
Something
job how much they're getting.
My apologies, Elizabeth. Things I've seen or done, Brian, is also discount on books or scholarship. I mean, behind the scenes, it's not real money to the university. Yeah, you're giving up margin that you would have on books or a meal plan, et cetera, but it's not a one-to-one impact to the institution. So, I've been at schools where we did things like that. And we could keep it non-taxable, whether we call it a scholarship or something. So there's just creative ways. The real key is having a champion on the financial side of your campus that agrees that this is a priority. Again, I'll go back to my previous comment, because RAs retain other students because of that residential experience. Give me $300 per RA for the year, and I'll bring you 20 students next year that'll still be here. They won't drop out. They won't, transfer.
In a previous institution I was at, almost the opposite of Beth's situation, we asked students and they overwhelmingly wanted the same dollar amount in payment because so many of our students were receiving external scholarships that could not be applied to other things. So if they received an external scholarship for $1,000 that only showed a $500 balance on their housing or tuition bill, they only got $500 of that scholarship. And so that shift helped a lot of our students increase their income without us actually changing the dollar amount that we were providing.
We did ask them if they wanted us to move it towards a $200 book stipend per semester. We asked them a whole bunch of questions. Like it was 4 different meetings by the time we were done, trying to make sure that we accommodated or listened and heard what they wanted. The other thing is we have a night host position. They work 11 p.m. until 3 a.m. and RAs get first dibs on those. That they can actually get paid. That goes through student employment. They can actually get paid. So the ones that want physical money in their hands, they like that those go to RAs first. Then we fill it with other students, of course, because not all the buildings have enough RAs that want to do it. So it was just a very interesting conversation. One of the things we did change is RAs get first bid on night host positions, then students in the building. That up that. And we left it on the meal plan. And we didn't put it on campus cash. So, I mean, it wasn't change. Our CFO didn't care because nothing was changing financially for Breslin. So it was talking to students saying, this is my pot of what I have. What do you want? How do you want it seen? We have a lot of first gens at our school. They want it on their bill because they need their bill paid. So it just matters what population you're dealing with. Populations make differences, and I think just lots of conversation and listening and buying some pizza and some get Capri Suns or soda in a can. Don't buy bottles. And just having them there and listening, so much gets done. We've got 2 more minutes. Anything?
I'm gonna jump in with some updates and put it in the chat. So our next call will be January 11th. Registration link is there. It will be added to our website and our calendar. We are just having some technical difficulties this week, so it may take us a few days to get it on the calendar, but registration link is there in the chat for January 11th. And as we approach the end of the year, I just want to give a shout out to Beth and Luis for all their work this year with the network. It's been really wonderful. I'll also plug that they are still looking for a partner in crime to kind of jump into some leadership things for next year. So I'm going to put my email in the chat. And if you have questions or want to know more about it, happy to connect about it.
And we will have the spring symposium. Luis and I and Meredith are going to start working on that soon. So look forward to that. That'll be in April again, like always.
Yep, April 17th this year.
So if there's anything specifically you would love to know about or love us to have in that symposium, please either email Luis, myself, or Meredith. No matter what, have an amazing, wonderful winter break. I hope you get to take some time off. I hope you get to celebrate with whoever you want to celebrate. And I hope you get to have lovely, whatever makes you happy. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you all. Appreciate y'all.
Thank
Bye, guys.
you.